Hey there, PAX 09 continues, and I'm here joined by Ron Gilbert. Ron, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
We were just talking a minute ago about how much we love PAX and how much fun this show is.
Yeah, no, I love PAX. This is my favorite show of all time to come to.
Now, you're kind of the belle of the ball this year. You did the big keynote speech, and you're showing off DeathSpank for the first time here. For the folks who might have missed the keynote, can you give us a little kind of big picture view of what your message was for the PAX audience?
I think the big thing about that was kind of the importance of indie games and the importance that games are really taken seriously as an art form. So I think that's very important for the whole industry as kind of we go forward over the years is we are art, and I think we need to be taken seriously like that.
Hence DeathSpank.
Yes, of course. That's art. That's my art.
This is high art for sure.
Yep, absolutely.
So 09 and going into 010, or 10, we'll call it, going into 10, adventure games have made kind of a surprising comeback. I don't think anyone necessarily anticipated this, but it's very popular, and here at PAX represented very well. DeathSpank itself definitely has a lot of adventure elements to it, and you, Ron, of course, you know, your history and your pedigree with the genre is pretty incredible. What's your feeling about how things are going right now?
I think it's great. I think it's just super the way kind of adventure games has come back, and you know, Monkey Island being re-released and all that is just absolutely fabulous. And DeathSpank is very much an adventure game. You know, it's a lot of, you know, RPG Diablo type gameplay in it, but it is a good hardcore adventure game at its core.
I noticed that seeing the game yesterday that there was a certain amount of the dialogue trees were there, and that seemed to be kind of the main influence of the adventure game stuff. What else in DeathSpank do you feel kind of represents that genre?
Well, in addition to the dialogues, which I think is kind of a major component of adventure games, is there's a lot of puzzle solving. There's a lot of items you have to find and get and solve puzzles with them to get into areas and to get different characters what they need to kind of, you know, progress through the story. So I think those two things are really what I pulled out of adventure games and put into DeathSpank, are the dialogues and the puzzle solving.
So, a question that I asked David Grossman from Telltale Games yesterday, posed to you now. It seems like, at least for me, when it comes to adventure games, humor is such a huge component. It's like the LucasArts games I always kind of gravitated towards because of that humorous angle, and definitely see that in DeathSpank. A lot of people try and pull it off. It seems like very few people are actually able to make a funny game. And it seems like almost all of them are coming out of that LucasArts, that old adventure game kind of crowd. Between yourself, you know, the Telltale guys, and Tim Schafer, what is it that you think is the key to making a funny game?
I think it's being funny.
That's going to do it for our interview with Ron. Yeah, it's like, is it the timing? Is it the?
I think that humor in games is very hard because of timing. When you're doing humor in a movie, you have complete control of the timing. You can cut the shot exactly where you need to cut it. But games, the players have control of that stuff. So you really need to figure out a different kind of humor that works with that. And I think some of the places that humor can fail in games is when people try to do it like movies, and they get the timing all wrong. So the number one thing is timing.
So you can't treat it like another medium. You have to know how to make humor for games specifically. So you can't just have maybe someone who's funny in another medium that doesn't necessarily translate into games?
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that a lot in writers, because you get very, very funny writers who write a very, very funny screenplay, but they really can't do funny game dialogue because they're used to controlling the pacing of the dialogue. And in games, players have control of that. So it's just a different way that kind of art form is, and people just need to kind of learn that and understand it. And, you know, back at LucasArts, that was something we just focused on. And, you know, Dave and Tim and me, we just really focused on that and really kind of understood how all that works.
So getting back to DeathSpank a little more specifically, how did your relationship with Hothead Games kind of come to be?
Well, I had started working on DeathSpank probably close to 5 years ago, and it was just an idea that sprung up from these little flash comics that were on my website. And my friend Clayton Kozlerick and I, we created these flash cartoons to kind of poke fun at the industry. And we needed a video game character, and he just had to be ridiculous, and he had to have the stupidest name we could think of. So it was DeathSpank. And as we started playing around with the character, he just kind of grew. And eventually I started to think about stories with him and think about his world, and I kind of designed a little adventure game around him, and I started, you know, pitching it to different publishers. a lot of the large companies, they don't get humor. They want funny games, but they don't want funny games. They want something that's like new and original, but it's like everything else. And eventually I ran into the guys at Hothead, and they're a nice little indie, publisher, and they just loved it immediately. And I guess the rest is history.
What was the inspiration behind the decision to kind of make this a hybrid style game? It's being described as Monkey Island meets Diablo, as opposed to doing just a pure straight adventure game.
Well, obviously I love adventure games. I love to play them, I love to make them, but I also like Diablo. I play that a lot, and I play World of Warcraft, and I just love those things, and I really wanted to meld those two things together. And I think that adventure games and RPGs, they share a lot in common. There are a lot of differences, but there's a lot that they have in how they tell stories and how you kind of progress through the games. And I just wanted to find those common components and just really put them together. So
one last question here, Ron, just kind of as a fan kind of fantasy question here. What would the chances be sometime in the future? We've seen Monkey Island kind of coming back, of the potential return of a Maniac Mansion or a Day of the Tentacle, or something like that with little Ron Gilbert in it.
I would love to do another Monkey Island game.
Yeah. There you go. We would love to. For the folks listening. Well, Ron, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.